happens if Alabama misses the college football playoff in 2025? Start with, it would be unprecedented. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on Step Mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you think Alabama will make the college football playoff in 2025? Also going to remind you, we have an audio podcast on Apple and Spotify. And if you are kind enough to leave us a 5-star review at both, I'm going to send you one of these stickers. All you got to do is hit the link in the description below, fill out the form, and tell me where to address my thank you note. So, Alabama enters year 2 of the Kalen DeBoer experience. And now that he's got a full year of not just games, but off-season recruiting and development underneath him, there is a really good question as to, is this team going to make the college football playoff? Because it is more talented than it was last year, even with the change quarterback from Jalen Milroe to what we think is going to be Ty Simpson. If not Ty Simpson, then Austin Mack. Richard Young is going to be in that backfield with Jam Miller. Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, Isaiah Horton, Cole Adams on one side. On the other side, right, we got Quay Russell, we got Damani Jackson, we got dudes, we got hitters, right, Deontay Lawson. But that's really not what we're talking about when we talk about Bama. What we talk about with Bama is an unparalleled excellence. Put it another way, since the college football playoff was first created and played 2014, no team has made more appearances in it than Alabama, right? So it goes like this. Alabama has made 8 playoff appearances and won 9 games in the playoff. So we're 3 wins away from them having, a full season or in college football. And we're actually on the cusp of 4 more times they make it and they have a full season of college football playoff. So how many championships have they won? Well, the most of anybody. 3. 3 college football playoff national championships of the 7 that Nick Saban won. And my goodness, dude. Talking also because of this, the SEC leads with the most appearances, 10, 14 wins from SEC and 6 championships. So you can understand why we continue to say things like the SEC has been the most dominant college football league in America for the last 20 years. Now, it feels like that might be coming to an end because with Bama missing the playoff last year, we also got back-to-back Big Ten champions for the first time. First time ever. Michigan, then Ohio State. Ohio State being the defending champ. Now, Texas and Oklahoma ought to help, right? More Texas right now than Oklahoma, but you get my point here. It's not whether or not Alabama's going to be good. It's more like they weren't good enough. When you are having to argue with SMU over the final spot in the college football playoff, you are not meeting the standard at Alabama. Now, losing to Oklahoma probably did it to you, right? Losing to Vanderbilt also did it to you. Losing to Tennessee, people could stomach that. That's going to be okay, right? Losing to Michigan is just kind of salt in the wound because it's done at that point. But I tend to look at it from the standpoint of every other year, Alabama has made the playoff, right? So in a year where they didn't, like 2019, right? Guess what? They end up right where you expect them to be. Back in the playoff the next year, 2020, with what I think is one of the 5 best college football teams of all time. Nick Saban's last year, they got in over an undefeated Florida State, in large part because we know Nick Saban and we don't know what Florida State is without Jordan Travis. All these things play. Kalen DeBoer had entered Alabama as a guy who had flipped Washington into not just a contender, but a national title runner-up in short order. All you need to give him was a quarterback, some wide receivers, and a defense that didn't absolutely suck. And they were able to do what they needed to do in the Pac-12 and eventually in the playoff. I'm curious to find out if Kalen DeBoer and Alabama miss the playoff this year, what happens to DeBoer? Because I don't know that he would get fired. I think it's about how did you miss the playoff, right? 9 wins is 9 wins, but Bama, you're used to 11 or nothing, right? Even in the season where you won 11 again in the Citrus Bowl, right? 2019, right? You're not happy about that, even though that Michigan team turned out to be a monster later on down the line. So did that Bama team the very next year, okay? It's more like, look at the schedule that Bama is facing. Now, Florida State we don't know what they're going to be. I mean, they were 2-10 last year. It's been a wholesale change. Might as well be Indiana for all we know, right? Good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it. Wisconsin will be better, but you ought to be able to beat them. But then your schedule is still your schedule. Like, you got the Fighting Toting Romos in there, but you still got to play LSU. You still got to play Oklahoma. You still got to play Tennessee. Vanderbilt's not a pushover. South Carolina's good. Auburn ought to be better. Missouri is going to be decent. Like, there aren't any easy wins on the schedule in FBS competition for Alabama this year. It's just not there. So everything they get, they're going to have to earn. They're going to have to do it with a guy who is figuring out how to be the starter for the first time. And frankly, better be throwing the ball to Ryan Williams just as often as they can, right? I realize you want to run the football, but Ryan Williams averaged 18 yards per catch. He got 48 catches last year. That man needs to get closer to 100 catches this year. Feed him the rock. And you're going to let Jeremy Bernard run wide open, Cole Adams run wide open, Isaiah Horton run wide open because of what he's going to be able to facilitate for you. You can't afford to drop games to Vanderbilt. You can't afford to drop games to Oklahoma. You can't afford to drop games to Auburn. You can't afford to drop games to programs that we don't expect to be in the college football playoff. Now, Oklahoma could be there. Every SEC team could be there. But there are those that we're willing to bet on, and there's those that we aren't, right? Georgia, Texas, people are willing to bet on. After that, maybe Florida, right? Because think about it this way. When DJ Lagway played a full game for Florida, they're 6-0. It mattered. It does matter. We don't have that data point for Alabama so far this year, and we're still looking for it. But we do have the data points for what excellence has looked like in the playoff era, and it all screams Nick Saban's Alabama. It's almost as if when we created this format, we created a way to make sure that his team makes the playoff, period. And sometimes it meant playing against another SEC team in the national championship. That's when you know you're good. That's when you know you're dominant. When your league creates the two best teams in the sport, right? When your team is going to play a game that it would regularly play, Georgia's on the schedule in the regular season again for Alabama. When that's a regular season game becomes a national championship game, there's nothing anybody gets to tell you about anything. And that's where they've been working from. But now it's kind of getting tight for the SEC because back-to-back years of not playing in the national championship game, it's gonna hurt. And if they get a third straight year and you see the Big Ten continue to do what the Big Ten does, maybe Clemson is Clemson, right? You could be looking at perhaps a plucky Big 12 team that goes undefeated, maybe stealing a spot from you and make it harder for you to get to the national championship game again, to say nothing of what would happen to an Alabama that wins 10 games. Now, we tend to believe that if you win 10 games in the SEC, you're going to make the playoff. So let's say your losses are Georgia, right? And then pick one on the schedule. Pick one. I think you can do that. So they get to 10 wins, Alabama's going to be there. Right? That's just what it is. But it is worth considering what it might look like if they don't. How long we can expect Kalen DeBoer to survive if they don't. These are, wild times. But that's what he's up against. They've given him the roster. They put together the NIL collective. They have gone through every change they possibly could, even keeping Nick Saban in and around and in the building to try to facilitate better recruiting, better players. I'm still very much a part of this program. I still very much care about what happens here. He will still go do in-homes from time to time, right, depending on what you need, because he's still got it in his veins. But it's all on Kalen DeBoer. He's the head coach. That's what it is. And Alabama's not a place where you can go back-to-back 9-win seasons anymore. It's not that it. They don't want to take a step back. They want to take a step forward. They want to be leading the conversation. So everything Ohio State did last year, something they believe they should be able to do this year, to say nothing of what Georgia was doing in 2021, 2022. Remember, Georgia beat that Alabama team and then stopped a mud hole in Texas Christian, walked it dry, right? If Alabama's in that Texas Christian spot, do they beat Michigan? Maybe. But they just weren't good enough, right? That's what we're talking about. It's those sorts of conversations. I'm fascinated by this season because there are a lot of men that have a lot to prove, and Kalen DeBoer is absolutely one of them.